This is Doug Tidwell for CloudBees. Over the next few minutes, we'll be talking about CloudBees CI, which you may know as CloudBees Core. CloudBees CI delivers enterprise Jenkins at scale. We'll talk about some of the most common problems people have when they try to scale Jenkins, and we'll look at how CloudBees CI solves them. We'll start, though, with a few numbers, 3 goals, and 3 unpleasant truths. Our first number is 15. Jenkins is more than 15 years old. It is battle-tested. It is used every day by hundreds of thousands of people. For 10 of those years, CloudBees has been helping customers scale Jenkins and make the most of this technology. That large and active Jenkins community has created more than 1,600 plugins. That means if you need to integrate a tool with your build pipeline, there's probably an existing plugin that will do that for you. For CloudBees customers, there is the CloudBees Assurance Program, which ensures and reassures you that the most popular of those plugins are secure and stable and safe to use in your production environment. Our next number, and our very favorite, is the number 1. With more than 70% market share, Jenkins is the number 1 technology in the CI space. For the open source version of Jenkins, in addition to building CloudBees CI, CloudBees employees contribute more than 80% of the code changes to the open source Jenkins project. Let's talk about some of your goals. I'm going to guess these are your goals because they're pretty much everyone's goal. The first goal is innovation. We'll pretend that's a light bulb and not a mushroom. You want your employees to spend their time innovating as much as possible. The more time they spend on administrative tasks, the less time they can spend innovating and giving your company an advantage over the competition. Another important goal is eliminating risks. We'll use a shield with a check mark to represent lowered risk. That includes the risk of shipping buggy software. It also includes the risk of not adhering to rules and regulations and compliance issues that may be applicable to your organization. The last goal, again, one that we feel is common and non-controversial, is efficiency. We need to move faster than ever before. We need to do more with less. Our competition is doing that. You have to do that as well. We'll talk about these goals and how CloudBees CI can help you achieve them. Now for our 3 unpleasant truths. Our first unpleasant truth comes from our friends at Forrester. They have found that 48% of all organizations have more than 100 tools in their various tool chains. So if you look across the organization, there are lots of tools that have to work together to automate builds and deliver software. The next number is 73%, also from Forrester, and that's the percentage of companies and organizations that take more than 3 months to deliver software. If you look at testimonials from CloudBees customers, we'll talk about a couple in just a minute, you'll find that our customers have used CloudBees CI to go from delivering quarterly to monthly, weekly, daily, in some cases almost hourly, thanks to the efficiencies that CloudBees CI provides. Our last number, and to me the most troubling, is the number 80%. That's the percentage estimated by Gartner, the percentage of DevOps efforts that won't scale. That's because of a lack of collaboration, a lack of tools that help organizations share best practices across different teams. We'll talk more about that problem in just a minute as well. Now let's talk about how Jenkins tends to get started and the first problem with scalability people tend to run into. In your organization, you have a group of forward-thinking engineers. They put together a Jenkins server and start using DevOps best practices. That means they start shipping software that's of higher quality, and they're shipping it faster than ever before. The rest of the organization, of course, looks at this and says, we need a server too. So we'll have a server here, and we'll have a server here, and we'll have this server, and we'll have this server. I intentionally drew all of these with different shapes because they're all different. Each one has the tooling, the plugins, etc. that each group needs to do their work. There are some problems here, however. The first problem is the problem of hidden costs. Especially, this is an opportunity cost because probably the best engineers on each team are keeping the Jenkins server up and running and patched, keeping the latest levels of plugins installed on them and so forth. That means they're not innovating. So you're actually spending a lot of time, a lot of money, and wasting a lot of resource by keeping all of these separate Jenkins servers up and running. The next problem is that there is no collaboration. So if this team discovers a new way of doing things that makes them much more efficient, they're not connected to any other team. There's no guarantee, there's no mechanism for them to share their learning, to share those best practices with the other teams. That is also a problem. It gets back to the 80% of DevOps efforts that won't scale. But the biggest problem is that we have no governance here. This team, being the forward-thinking engineers that they are, they make sure that every pipeline running on that Jenkins server requires a code build to include a security scan. That's a best practice. That's great. But from an administrative point of view, we have no idea that that's happening here. We have no idea if it's happening on the other servers. We have no oversight, no control, no idea what these individual Jenkins servers are doing. So this is a problem we call the islands of Jenkins problem, because what we end up with is lots of servers, each of which has overhead, each of which is completely different, and we have no policies, no guidelines, no governance in place to make sure everyone's doing the same thing. So in response, most organizations take an approach that we'll discuss on the other side of the board in a different color. The other approach organizations take next to make Jenkins scale is to create a monolithic Jenkins server. So we have this nice, lovely server, and it has a pipeline here, and it has a pipeline here, and it has a pipeline here, and so forth. Basically, every pipeline from every one of these Jenkins servers is now running inside the monolithic Jenkins server. But there are still problems. The first problem is the issue of scalability. How many CPUs, how much RAM, how much disk space do we need to throw at this monolithic server to keep it up and running and make sure it performs to our needs? And even if we do that for today, will it be enough a month from now? Will it be enough on the last day of a sprint? That can be a difficult problem to solve. The second problem, which is somewhat related to that, is that this can become a single point of failure for the entire organization. If your Jenkins server goes up in flames, That was fun, wasn't it? If your Jenkins server goes up in flames, no one in your organization is building anything until it's back online. The last problem, and the one you may not be able to solve, is the question of technical diversity. So if you look across these islands of Jenkins, they have different levels of Java, for example. They have different levels of plugins. This Jenkins server and this Jenkins server may have two different incompatible versions of the same plugin. The problem here is that you may not be able to solve this with a single configuration. If that's the case, then some of your teams are going to go back to the island of Jenkins from which they came. This server meets my needs, this server does not. In this case, we've got the worst of both worlds. I have islands of Jenkins that are not governed. I'm not sure what's happening, and I'm spending a lot of time and resource maintaining those instead of innovating. And I've got a monolithic server, which takes substantial resources to keep up and running, but it's not meeting everyone's needs either. However, shall we solve this problem? The answer to our scalability problems and governance issues is CloudBees CI, the reason that we're here. With CloudBees CI, you have some number of managed masters. We have master number 1, master number 2, master number 3, and so on. Each of these is independent, so they can have different software stacks, different tools, different plugins. Each of these can meet the needs of an individual organization or project. They are also all managed by CloudBees CI. So we have central management here, which can give us the governance and compliance that we need. A couple of things that are great about this. One is that onboarding becomes really easy. If we have a new project or a new team, we just create a new master and everything is good. That team is up and running very quickly. Another issue is that I can keep these managed masters separate, or I can have them collaborate. So these may be working together, they may be completely separate. I have that flexibility. The last issue here, and what I think is the most powerful feature, is that I can define these with templates. So if I have a best practice, if I have a governance or compliance issue, I can roll out rules and policies across all of those masters. If we discover new best practices in our organization, we roll those out across all the masters as well. So with CloudBees CI, we've solved the problem of islands of Jenkins because we're centrally administering these masters, each of which has exactly what these teams need. And we're solving the problems of monolithic Jenkins in that we can have the technical diversity that we need, we can have scalability, and we have stability because the masters are independent of each other in terms of the environment in which they're running. I'll leave you with 3 case studies of CloudBees CI customers. First of all, Autodesk estimates that their developers, thanks to the automation features and team management features of CloudBees CI, are 10 times more productive. That allows them to deliver innovation instead of spending their time on mundane tasks. Secondly, at Sura, when we talk about reducing risk, their use of CloudBees CI led to a roughly 75% decrease in defects. That's amazing, and again, lowers risk by taking more and more defects out of the picture. And finally, at Centene, They worked with CloudBees support and services to move from their islands of Jenkins to CloudBees CI. They estimate that it would take 5 to 10 engineers to maintain the islands of Jenkins they had before. Those engineers are now free to make the business more efficient. So CloudBees CI is a win for governance and control. It's a win for development teams that need to get up and running quickly. We encourage you to take a look at cloudbees.com to learn more about this product. Thanks for watching. For CloudBees, this is Doug Tipple. Cheers.